Okie dokie. Now the hands are flying. I'm going to choose that gentleman there. Yeah, you win.
My name's Mark Wickens. Mr. Brown, you said you wanted to protect public services during a recession. I just wanted to ask you why then it is under Labour government that next year's budget for Baswick has been frozen and countless police officers on the 30+ scheme in Brighton have recently been made redundant.
I'd just say to you, we are providing the funding for police authorities and continuing to see it rise. A lot of the money that's got to be provided for police is by the local precept that is decided by a police authority. So we, as a central government, will provide the money necessary for our contribution to policing, and then the local decisions are going to be made. As a result of what we've done, we've got more police in this country than ever before in our history. It's amazing to know that there's about 16,000 more police officers than 1997. We've also introduced community support officers, which are in many areas. And we've introduced neighbourhood policing, which means that there is police in every area of a community. And neighbourhood police forces are now more accountable to local people that need that police service. And I want people to feel safe in their areas and know that the police are a visible presence. We've also recently said that police have got to be visible on the streets, so 80% of police time has got to be on the streets. And we've said in our manifesto we're going to give power. If a police force is failing, it can be taken over by another police force that is able to offer a better service. But as far as funding, Alan Johnson was on the radio this morning, our Home Secretary, and saying that we will continue the funding for policing. But of course, some of the decision rests with the local authority and the precept that they decide for the financing of their contribution to the policing.
There was also the question, the VASIC, what was the second part of that question?
The budget for next year has been frozen.
Basildon.
The Baswick, the school.
Oh. I'll have to look at that specifically. Which authority are you under?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll look at it. We'll look at it. Look, we are saying for schools that we will continue pupil funding over the next period of time, and pupil funding for pupil will rise. Obviously, a lot of decisions are made by local authorities and by institutions that are responsible for running a particular college or a particular school. But the money available for schools is rising over the next 3 years.
Okie dokie. Gentleman in the red.
My name's Andrew Jess, and I was just wondering, Mr. Brown, I was a bit confused. Peter Mandelson said that if we voted Labour, then we perhaps wouldn't see another 5 years of Gordon Brown. Is that, as Ed Miliband said, Peter just being Peter, or would you see yourself in an institution such as the IMF or the World Bank in years to come?
I think we'll see another 5 years of Peter Mandelson, definitely. But you'll see another 5 years of me. I'm standing for election at this election because I want to finish the work that we're doing in ensuring the recovery, making these constitutional reforms, and building better public services, so you can ensure I'm standing for the term.
Okay, yes, gentleman there. So fast now. We fly one of... It's coming, it's coming.
Hi, my name's Ollie, and you speak a lot about sort of a fair democracy and all these things, and you said you want to reform the House of Commons and the House of Lords, but when would you be doing that? And if you were to put it to a referendum for a proportional representation, would you then have to have a general election following that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because it's about the timescale for change, and we've got to move this forward. We can bring in the right of recall for members of Parliament immediately. We can bring in the right to petition Parliament and have your issues addressed by Parliament immediately. On the reform of the House of Commons and the House of Lords, that's the alternative vote system, where we would ask people to vote at a referendum whether they wanted a new system of voting for the House of Commons and the accountability of the House of Lords by making it elected. That would be something that we would put to the people of this country in a referendum by October 2011. So the plan is to do that in the next 18 months, and the people themselves would vote for this in a referendum. But as you know, we've had a referendum on devolution in Scotland, devolution in Wales. We had a referendum on the devolution to Northern Ireland. When you have these big decisions on internal constitutional reform, I think it's right that the whole people are consulted. So that would be put to the people of this country, and then a future election would be fought on the new voting system for both the House of Commons and the House of Lords. You may think I've got a bit of a grudge against the House of Lords when I say that we're going to halve the House of Lords. We are going to make sure that the House of Lords is accountable and electable in a way it hasn't been in the past.
What will we do with the spare seats?
I think we could find a way of using them for better purposes.
People can relax on them. All right.
There's a spare ermine as well.
Spare ermine, yes, spare robes going around. Right at the front, right, yes. Is that your question?
Yeah.
Oh, it's long, long.
I'm Claire Calder. My grandma has Alzheimer's disease, and my grandfather, who is now dead, had dementia as a result of a stroke, and my grandmother became ill looking after him. In 2003, when I was 11, I wrote to you asking for free care for people with dementia. I'm very pleased that you are now going to introduce free home care for people with high care needs, and would like to thank you. And I was just wondering if you could explain a bit more about how it will work and if it will apply to people like my grandmother, who needs 24-hour personal care but doesn't need specialist nursing care.
Well, I'm very sorry about the... I'm very sorry about the problems that you have to face in dealing with these problems and conditions in your family. And I think, you know, every family's got their own story to tell about what happens when elderly parents or grandparents are faced with a choice. They want to stay in their own home and they can't do so because they can't have the medical care that's necessary. And then they have to go into a nursing home, and then they've got to choose between the home they own and the care that they need. They've therefore got to sell their own home to pay for that nursing care. So we've got a big issue that we've got to deal with about social care for the elderly over the next few years. Our starting point, as you rightly say, is to meet the urgent social needs of people who stay in their own home. In some authorities, 75% of people stay in their own homes and don't go into nursing homes. In other authorities, it's just 25%. And that means that a lot of the care that we know is dependent on whether you have proper domiciliary care. That is, home health visitors, the 24-hour care you need, respite care for the relatives, and at the same time all the equipment that's necessary if someone's staying in their own home and not going into an institution. So the first thing we want to do, April next year, urgent social needs met, no means test. At the moment there's a means test as to whether you can get it free of charge. Everybody gets it free of charge. So we want elderly people to know that they can stay in their own homes and that there's proper funding available for them for their urgent needs to be met. The second thing, however, we want to do is in the next Parliament, we want to say, look, if you've got to go into a nursing home or an old people's home because you've got a long-term disease like dementia or Alzheimer's, and these are conditions that mean that you need care, but obviously you're able to live longer, then we say after 2 years of paying for your care, we will pay all the rest after 2 years. So I know it's not the ideal solution, which would be to help everyone, but personal and medical care after 2 years, no further payments. And that will help particularly those people who suffer from dementia and Alzheimer's, who tend to have to spend quite a lot of time in long stay care. So our plan for the reform of social care is first of all help urgent needs and help people stay in their own homes, which will save money, of course, because people will not need to go into nursing homes. Then, if people have to go into nursing homes, to restrict the payments after two years. And then in the long term, to move to a comprehensive care system that we will do by sorting out the financial issues in the next Parliament and making a report to the public. So we're making progress on what is, as young people, we don't think about it much, but we know that every family is affected one way or another. When you sometimes have double carers, people caring for children and caring for elderly relatives, and it's a real pressure on families. So we want to help carers and we want to help elderly people have dignity and security in retirement.